Think I'm ready. Okay, good morning everybody. Let's do our little, I got my new phone, so I'm going to try to have the phone facing me so I can see if I'm in the picture. I got a few things. We're going to go. I got a lot of funny stories I'm thinking about this morning before I got started. I took Pops, I wrote this, I don't really prepare. I wrote all these little notes down when I'm sitting in the bathtub this morning, and it's in some Bible. I'm like, oh, I thought of this. Yesterday I took Pops to the thrift store. Oh, I'm going to title this video, if I remember. I'm going to title it, My Murder Confession. You say, John, don't. The cops are watching. PD's watching you. It's what they've been waiting for. You guys are going to have to watch it to the end. That's how I get the cops to listen to the gospel. But I am going to tell a story. And I took Pops yesterday to a thrift store after Walmart and all. He's buying a shirt. He's kind of getting the stuff for his hair and all. And I kid with the people wherever I am, and he buys a shirt, and I tell the lady, I said, now, is it guaranteed that he's going to be able to get a date? You know, if not, can he bring the shirt back? And they don't know if I'm kidding, but she got it. And I wrote down Booty Street. You know, I took Pops to a thrift store on Leopard. That's a strip where a lot of hookers work, up and down that strip. It's like a drug area, and so they got a street named Booty Street. And I've always, like, every time I pass the street, it's on the way really to Pop's house, I always used to say, Booty Street, you know, you want to change this image here. But he had a doctor's appointment a few weeks ago, and we went. There's a few medical complexes right in that area, and so I'll take him. But he told me I never would have been able to find it, John. And you don't have to be around me long to see, like, it doesn't take me long to start, like, okay, what the hell's going on here? You know, I'm going to fix this. And I get the address, Booty Street. Small street. It's right by the big hospital, Spawn, and medical complex. And I'm a retired firefighter, and one of the things that upsets me is some of the streets have no names, no signs. And in Kingsville, you memorize when you get hired, and you're even in your rookie year, you're required to memorize the street map of the city because you're going to be driving at night. And so I memorized, you know, I could still mention the numbers. It wasn't that hard, numbered streets and all. But I don't memorize Corpus, but I know Corpus well. So we drove around. We went to a few spots looking for his little medical office. And I go down Booty Street. I find it. But the sign is like sideways. And a lot of the signs are like that. They turned around. They're not correct. So I find the sign that says Booty. I said, well, we're on it, Pops. We're on the street. That's a sign. But there's no number that we were looking for, whatever it was, 700 or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I know the street. It's not a very big street. And then I went down Santa Fe, Alameda looking. So I just pulled in the parking lot right there in a bunch of medical offices. And I called. I said, look, I'm here with my Pops. We're looking for your office. You know, where are you now? I said, I'm looking at the sign. It says Booty Street, and there's no number. And the poor lady, she's like, well, and you're standing there. Yes, I'm here. I can't see you. I'll come outside and I'll wave. Secretary. So I'm standing, and then right down the block, I see her in the street, you know, in the front of the building with her hands waved. Oh, there it is, Pops. We'll go. But it wasn't, you know, the address, the street was wrong, the sign. So anyway, she was a nice Mexican lady. So, and I go in and I tell her, Pops is signing in. I said, now I hope when he gets the bill, it's not going to have an extra $10, $15 charge. Now I'm kidding. I wasn't that mad, you know. What? I said, because it's going to say at the bottom, if the secretary actually has to go into the street and wave, we have a charge for that. So she got it. She was laughing. Booty Street. I'm not going to tell the murder story till the end, if I remember. Watch me forget. You say, John, if you keep doing this, you keep baiting us with these titles and trying to get us to watch your videos. We don't like that. We're not going to watch them. Are you watching this now? I guess it's working. I'm just kidding. All right, I wanted to do Jeremiah. I have a few funny stories. I read Jeremiah, one of the chapters last night. Oh, look, my daughter came over yesterday. She gave me a tripod for the phone. She's like, I don't know if you like it, Dad. She watches the videos, and they probably see me like, oh, my poor dad, he's already got all that stress, and he's flipping the phone in the air. So she kind of tried to say, maybe you'll like it. I said, oh. I told her, I said, she was with her friend, Lou. I said, well, I'm sure you guys watch my videos. And they don't want to make it look like, Dad, you need help with that stuff. I said, I'm not a big recording artist. I said, but they're probably the top of the line quality videos anywhere on YouTube. Jeremiah, I read it last night. Everything that I'm reading in the Old Testament and the New is just, I'm not finding these chapters on purpose. It's just going through. And like I said in the Psalms, they usually have, sometimes they deal with stuff real time. I'm going to read some verses from Jeremiah 25, and I'll hopefully post it. Then I'll get to the murder confession. So you got to watch. Jeremiah the prophet spake unto all the people of Judah and to all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, saying, I'll skip a little bit. The word of the Lord hath come unto me, and I have spoken unto you, rising early and speaking, and ye have not hearkened. And the Lord hath sent unto you all his servants the prophets, rising early and sending them, but ye have not hearkened. Sounds like Jesus in the New Testament. Nor inclined your ear to hear. And they said, turn you again now every one from his evil way, and from the evil of your doings, and dwell in the land that the Lord hath given you, and to your fathers forever and ever. But you have not hearkened unto me, saith the Lord, that you might provoke me to anger with the works of your hands to your own hurt. Therefore thus says the Lord of hosts, because ye have not heard my words, behold, I will send and take all the families of the north, saith the Lord, and Nebuchadnezzar king. I will bring them against this land, and against the inhabitants thereof, and against all these nations round about, and will utterly destroy them, and make them an astonishment, and a hissing perpetual desolation. If I remember, I'm going to get to, there's so many verses that I had these last few years of thrones, spiritual warfare in a sense of thrones being set up, angels here, God raising up his power in the idea of he rules over the princes and the kingdoms of men. And these images and many of the verses and things I have were speaking to God, saying, I'm bringing in spiritual armies, if you will, from the north. And they're going to be set up, and there's going to be judgment meted out in the land. A lot of the images I had to deal with that. And this whole land shall be a desolation and an astonishment, and these nations shall serve the king of Babylon. It's a judgment that God was doing. And I will bring upon that land all the words which I have pronounced against it, even all that is written in this book, which Jeremiah hath prophesied against the nations. For many nations and great kings shall serve themselves of them. I will recompense them. Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, take the wine cup of his fury, of this fury at my hand, and cause all the nations to whom I send thee to drink it. It's an image. It says, take this cup of fury that's in your hand, this calling that Jeremiah had, which was one of God's going to bring judgment. And he says, and make everybody drink of this cup. That imagery of the cup and the winepress of the wrath of God, and God ruling in justice in nations, is a very real theme that goes along with ministry in the kingdom. And it says, make them drink from this cup of my fury. There are verses that say, the fury of the Lord upheld me. There's almost a prophetic calling that involves like a rage to it that you can see in Scripture. And they shall drink and be moved and be mad because of the sword that I will send among them when God begins judging. Then took I the cup at the Lord's hand and made all the nations to drink unto whom the Lord had sent. Said, he made them drink of it. He said, this is a time that there was going to be a purging and a judgment, and they were going to drink, whether they liked it or not. And to it Jerusalem and the cities of Judah and the kings thereof, and the princes thereof, the chiefs and all, that's one of the references there, to make them a desolation and astonishment, a hissing and a curse, as it is this day. And to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and all his servants. So the prophetic calling of Jeremiah wasn't just speaking into the church and God's people, but it was speaking into rulers, leaders, authorities, and saying, you're going to drink of this cup. There's going to be a judgment on it. And some of the issues, I watched the Central Park 5. I finished watching it last night. And watched that documentary of those kids that they framed for raping a woman back in 1989, I think, in New York City. Very devastated, those kids, ruined their lives. False accusation on those kids. God is very upset with that. And this is part of what he's dealing with the nations. Therefore, thou shalt say unto them, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, drink ye and be drunken, and spew and fall and rise no more, because of the sword which I will send among you. God's judgment was, it's now turning, and you're going to run because the judgment of God is coming. You can't escape the judgment of God. And it shall be, if they refuse to take the cup at thine hand, thou shalt say unto them, thus saith the Lord of hosts, you will certainly drink. For lo, I begin to bring evil on the city, which is called by my name. I will bring, there were prophecies. I'm very familiar with the history of this area and prophecies. And there were prophecies that said the city of Corpus Christi will live up to its name. And a lot of people and friends and ministry, we have solemn assemblies, or we have ministry, and we want to keep moving forward to see fulfillment of God working. But if you have injustice in the land, God actually says, part of me fulfilling that prophecy that the city of Corpus Christi will live up to its name, this is an aspect. God brings judgment in order to bring his rule. Okay? This is very important. This is Jeremiah, my prophetic friends and preachers. This is Jeremiah 25. That's a word for you. 26. For I begin to bring evil on the city which is called by my name. And should you be utterly unpunished, ye shall not be unpunished. For I will call for a sword upon all the inhabitants of the earth, saith the Lord of hosts. Therefore prophesy against them all these words, and say unto them, the Lord shall roar from on high, and utter his voice from his holy habitation. He shall mightily roar upon his habitation. He shall give a shout, and they that tread the grapes, against all the inhabitants of the earth. That's another image you see in Revelation, the treader of grapes, the winepress of wrath. A noise shall come even to the ends of the earth, for the Lord hath a controversy with the nations. He will plead with all flesh. He will give them that are wicked to the sword, saith the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, behold, evil shall go forth from nation to nation, and a great whirlwind shall be raised up from the coasts of the earth. And the slain of the Lord shall be at that day from one end of the earth even unto the other end of the earth. They shall not be lamented, nor neither gathered nor buried. Howl ye shepherds, and cry, and wallow in your ashes, ye principal of the flock, for the days of your slaughter and of your dispersions are accomplished, and ye shall fall like a pleasant vessel. The shepherds shall have no way to flee, nor the principal of the flock. And the word for that is chiefs or authorities. A voice of the cry of the shepherds, a howling of the chiefs of the flock shall be heard. For the Lord hath spoiled the pasture, and the peaceable habitations are cut down because of the fierce anger of the Lord. Now I'm going to post that. I had a lot of images Let me read just one. Last night I was reading from Peter. Jesus has gone into heaven and is on the right hand of God, angels and authorities and powers being made subject unto him. A lot of the theme, I'm a slow learner. And those of you that watch this, you might pick things up that I don't pick up. For a few years, I was very upset just about yesterday when I was with Charlie and Pops. Christina told me a story how she was kidding Charlie. She said to Charlie, "Oh, you're going to get arrested tomorrow morning, Charlie." And Charlie said, "Oh, okay, what time's it going to be?" And he thought it was true, and she was kidding him. And Pops told Christina Charlie was arrested 326 times throughout his life. That he was alcoholism, all these PIs guys get. Over time, one of the things that did upset me was a lot of people would think, how could officers actually just arrest people in some cases where they just said, "I'd do it"? Because both the guys that, in some of these cases that were arrested, and the cops that were arresting them, all cops won't cross that line and say, "If I ever see you, I'm just going to arrest you." These are my friends. This is history I learned, I saw. And I realized, like at the fire department, when you have issues with your other guys, you're writing people up, sometimes people lie in order to get other people in trouble. This is in-house internal stuff. That captain made me do this. And I realized once that's what it was happening. And some of the guys sincerely said, "Oh, I got arrested, but it wasn't, they lied, John. I didn't have a no trespassing warrant." A lot of the guys have no trespassing warrants at Stripes. And so it's very like, you become comfortable with it. Cops and the guys in the streets. So, if you say, "F this guy," and if you're a cop and you're saying that to one of the other guys, and you say to that guy, it's happened more than once, but one in particular, and my friend told me, he said if he ever sees me, he's just going to arrest me, no matter what. And then he went to jail for 3 days. Never knew what it was that he was arrested for, and he asked me. Now, these are street guys that are involved in all types of stuff. But it bugged them, like, they weren't real mad. So what? I spent another 3 days in jail, and then the cop would just say, never mind. But he would lie on that. And he would say later maybe, "Oh, I thought he had a trespassing," but he didn't. And of course the judge and court, that's it, this guy's a drug addict, alcoholic. But that cop had made known to that guy, whether you got a warrant or not, it don't make a difference, I'll make something up. And he's also told other people openly, "I'll just make it up." He got comfortable with just lying about, "Oh, he had a trespassing," because the local system does. But now, if you are a big shot, and you knew that at the whim of maybe an officer that's very upset about homeless situations for years, and you knew that some guy carried that over you, you would think differently. Or you those judges that signed off on that. You say, "I'm a good judge." You're not a righteous judge if you're signing off on those things. I recognize that upset me a lot when Christina told me, so those are actually illegal things that you should be immediately fired for. But that's common. It's common. My one friend told me once, John Cagle told me this, John Cagle. But I believe this happened in Oklahoma or somewhere else. It might have happened in Corpus. But this came up just when I was working with John at the halfway house, one of our first residents. And again, he said, "Man, I was on the bus one day," he remembered it, and a cop just drove up. See, guys with histories, they're comfortable with that. See, they're comfortable. They're like, they know each other. And the cop said, "What are you doing?" And John Cagle said, "Enjoying God's beautiful day." And John said, "That cop slammed the thing, having a bad day. I don't care how bad your day is. You don't do shit like that." And he slammed it into park. Said, "You smart ass, arrest him." Now, he probably wrote something, and he'll sit in jail. You guys are criminals when you do that. How like you get sitting in jail for 3 days. You don't do that. Now, God wants to move on a city or a place. Those things, God's not going to visit in a revivalistic way that many see those prophecies. because God says, I'm going to bring evil upon the city that's called by my name, or judgment, and I'll root those things out. I don't take any of those lightly. Never mind the big things I mentioned yesterday, if those things are true. But I don't take any of these things lightly. And this is an issue that God deals with. Oh, I'm going to have to get to the murder confession. I don't know. I got a few good ones here. A few years ago, I'll do the murder confession. A few years ago, when I first started going back to New York, I was much more wired than I am now. But people know when I'm wired. Like who? The other day, my daughter had given my wife a stove, an oven. I could show it to you. We put it in the other day. I put it in the other day, my daughter. But I told my wife it's a different stove. I installed the other one. I do stuff like that. But I told her it's a big stove, and I said, show it to you. But it wasn't made for the spot. Here it is. Walking in the house. It's a nice stove. But I had to cut, and I didn't have all the right tools. I don't know if you could see it. I had to cut here and take that out, take the cab. I put that in a while ago, years ago. So I told my wife, this stove is not, the same type that's supposed to go in there. The other one I bought new many years ago. I said, you can't just put it in. So anyway, we were going to do it Saturday, I think. And I have a power saw, a circular saw, but it's really not for the cutting the formica or whatever you call it. And I don't have all the tools, but I had to tear up the platform, cut the cabinets. But I said in the beginning, I said, it's not just pull the old one out and put the new one in. This is not made for this. Oh, but they thought it'd be easy. I did it. It didn't take long, but I didn't have a chisel. The saw doesn't, you got to cut the bottom out. You need a jigsaw, a different saw, but still I did it anyway. I used the screwdriver as a chisel, marked it, scarred it, broke the wood out. But about halfway through, my wife, I said, look, I don't have all the tools for this. And they seen I was like, and they were worried, oh no, Dad's going to electrocute himself because we had to shut the power off. And I'm like, no, just move the wire, I don't care. So it's done. But when I was in New York, started going back, I was much like that, just about anything. And I walk up from my house where I stayed, the old house I grew up in, North Bergen, New Jersey, Smith Avenue. I walk up to the George Washington Bridge, and then I walk over the bridge. And the first time I did it, I loved it, but I wasn't familiar with the different. As soon as you get over the bridge, now I realize, I think you're right in Bronx. And then I was going to just walk all the way to 42nd. Now, I almost did that, but I actually started late, so I finally caught the bus. But it would be easy for me to do. It's 4 miles from North Bergen, Smith Avenue, up to the bridge. And then might have been the 10-mile total, which ain't a lot to walk. But as I got off the first time I did this thing, I realized I'm walking beautiful, just walking New York City, loving it. And I realize I'm seeing, the streets are kind of dead, but the few people I see are black people, which is great. And then I'm seeing store signs, Harlem Grocery and all. And I thought, oh, am I in Harlem? I said, it was nice. I wasn't worried about being in Harlem. I thought, back in the old days, white people don't walk through Harlem. But it was beautiful. And then I started realizing, oh, I'm in Harlem. I just didn't know. Still didn't worry me. It was nice. Streets were very quiet, very dead. And I was taking pictures, my phone saga. And I couldn't upload them. So I was mad. And I stopped on the one street in Harlem. This is a few years ago. And it's not uploading the phone. That's the Huawei phone. And I'm getting mad. And some car comes down the street real slow. I'm thinking it was like a Lincoln or something. And our stereotypes, we all have them. And I'm a white guy in Harlem, already like a little bit off the wall. And my friends were telling me when I was doing these walks, Jersey City and all. A lot of my friends said, "No, John, it's not like it used to be. You can't just walk to Jersey City like you're doing at night." And I said, "No, it's wonderful. I'm enjoying it." So the car's going slow, and it's a dead street. And in my mind, I'm thinking, Huggy Bear from Starsky. This guy must be a pimp riding some big street. Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch. It was an old show, and Huggy Bear was a pimp for Starsky and Hutch working. But I was mad. I was just mad, like, who the hell do you think you are? Telling, he didn't say nothing. He's in the car. But that's what's going through my mind. Like, you think you're going to get this white guy, and I'll show. That's how my mind was going. And I stopped because I was trying to upload the pictures. And it was a big sidewalk, and there were like little, garages or storage things right off of the sidewalk, but it was a big sidewalk. So I was not scared. I was mad for no real reason, I was mad. Like, oh, so I'm not supposed to be in Harlem because I'm white. I grew up in North Bergen. In my head, this is my hometown, and now I'm coming back after all these years, and you guys are gonna. So the car's waiting, and it just stopped. I'm not joking. He stopped right. I'm on the sidewalk trying to upload the pictures from the phone, mad, and he stopped right next to me, and it was a dead street. And he must have saw my face, like, right now. I didn't say that, but he must have saw my face because he didn't get out of the car. And I just stood there like, you think I'm going to move now? I'm waiting. Come on, get out of the car. I don't know who it is. And I'm not sure if I knew it was a black guy at first, but finally he waited. Then he got out, seeing me, waiting for him to get out. And the look on his face was scared. Like, he was like a little scared. And it just must have been him looking at me like that, standing there. I'm sure he lived in this area, and I'm sure that was his neighborhood. And it is Harlem, and he was black. So he had every right, obviously, to be there. I was the interloper. And he came up, but he had a look like of, trying to be nice. He might have even said hi. And he reached around me and opened up his storage door. He might have been some doctor, had a storage right there. And I was standing in front of his storage door. So my murder confession is, I didn't murder anybody. I'm glad all you guys, cops, watched this video. You might get some good out of it. God's going to rule in all the earth. And part of it is dealing with a lot of these issues. When I watched the full Central Park 5, last night, it was 5 boys, not 4, but yes, Central Park 5. They really destroyed those kids' lives, but they did it purposely. Because eventually, when they were released, it was, I think it was Giuliani eventually became mayor, and Ed Koch and all. But when they looked at the case, I think the guy who was the prosecutor that later came in, whoever, his name was Morgenthaler or something, he simply looked at the statements. Later, they had the confession of the real person who raped the woman, DNA match and all. But the prosecutor, I think his name was Morgenthaler, who reviewed it, he said, just looking at the statements of the kids, they were all false testimonies they made those kids give. He said it was obvious. But they still went ahead and ruined those boys' lives for political reasons, for we're going to get them. And even when they were initially going after those kids, they realized the DNA was not there, and they should have dropped it at that moment, but they wanted to pursue it. There was a rage against these young black boys, and the city was outraged, played into the racism of the blacks. My little sharing, the Huggy Bear thought it played into all that. And that's injustice. And people in the church In the solemn assemblies, we say we want revival. It's so happy we're having a good time. And if there's real injustices right there within that society, within that city or place, God wants to visit that so he could fulfill the prophecy that the city will live up to its name. Because the prophecy of Jeremiah, I've got to turn back to it, but it said, I will visit the city. I missed it. Read it. I'll visit the city with evil, which is called, where is it? For lo, I begin to bring evil on the city which is called by my name, and should it be utterly unpunished. Evil or judgment is for the purpose of redemption. And if we as people, as we as a society, where we're at it in the United States, I'm almost done. There's many issues. I didn't want to cover, I could cover the Greek issue. They voted no. They basically voted, there might be big problems with the Greek situation. But God wants to move in a way among his people, which a lot of people, churches, charismatic ones, want that vision fulfilled. And God is saying, not in a vengeful way, but the winepress of wrath is to produce righteousness. And he cannot bring a revival or thing to an area or to a city unless injustices are also dealt with. And it's not to kill or get, or it's for the purpose of bringing righteousness. So that's the word today. I'll share, let's see. I might share a couple funny ones tomorrow. I won't have any more time. So, you got the title of the video, and you watch it to the end. And we want God to work. We want to see the Spirit of God move. But we also want to deal with these issues of injustice and all. That's part of it. Okay? God bless you guys. Talk to you tomorrow.